Hello, welcome. So if you see this video, you probably should know that it's not the first one. Yep, it's the next in a sequence of videos about programming, about Java, about small little applications that allow you to experiment, to play around with keyboard, with graphics, with sound, and maybe build or hack around your own application that is inspired by your ideas. So, I didn't have much time to build something extraordinarily difficult, extraordinarily complex, and I would say it's not always that fun, when you're building something really difficult, then you have a break, a day off, or month off, then you get back and you're like, why? What's going on? I can't understand anything. And that's the moment when programming from fun hobby can turn into sort of difficult hobby. That's why the best way for me to keep it fun, keep it easy for me to understand what's going on, is to keep projects small. But it doesn't mean that we will discuss anything super easy, like arithmetics. No, I would say we'll discuss the opposite side of it. So, on previous video, I wanted to start a project that would help me to program something that would resemble jumping mechanics in 2D platformers. For those who don't play games, I want to press a button and see some square moving like up and then down if someone jumped. Usually in old games and in currently also existing ones, this resembles like Mario jumping somewhere, or Sonic, or whichever you know. And usually jumping happens not like on one flat screen, but there are multiple platforms. That's why the game where you can jump from one place to another called platformers. Stupid name, but nevertheless, if you type something like this in Google, you will see this is like standard word for this. So yes, I thought that nice, cool. So if I want to do this jumping prototype, how I'm gonna show the way I am tweaking and changing it and trying my best to make it visually like easy for me to understand when and what is happening. I could add some debug logs, like debugging is like system out messages that would show me what is happening inside my program, or debug, or whatever. Or I could try and show the text on a screen, so that when I'm moving my square, I can actually see, for example, coordinates. Instead of thinking about them, I can see them on a screen. And I think that will be really helpful for me if I would try to do something harder than simple movement of things. But there is a caveat. I have this project that uses this showing text feature, but I haven't integrated it in a separate small project. So today I decided that instead of jumping, I want to do something related to text. Yep, that's sound again. As I know, I have this, I guess this one is about music. This one should be a simple game, like project. Can I see something with the text? Sprite, texture, camera. Oh, camera. Sounds difficult. Shape renderer. Texture. That kinda sad. I was sure that I have points that I was rendering at the left top corner of the screen. Yep, so I see this font and draw. What is font? Oh, I guess it's because I No, asterisk here. Where is this freaking font? Bitmap Font. Okay. Oh, this one. So I use Bitmap Font. I initialize it somewhere. Do I? Oh, it's like my... okay. I just create it. And then I simply use it. So that's a badge. Oh, I need a badge for it. That's interesting. Then I guess it's X and Y. Okay. How would I change? Let's take it like this. So first thing first. I have this project called Text Shower. Yep. Because shower. I have this class and I can call desktop launcher. Let's see. Would it compile? Multiple warnings. Can I move it? Yep, pretty much. What I want to do, I want to copy paste some stuff. That's usually how I'm doing it. So I know there is... Oh, I have this batch thingy. Nice. So probably I can do it like this. Nope. I don't need this one. I don't need this one. I want player sprite. I want X, Y, plus player. Where is my plus? That is kinda sad. Nope. X. Nope. Then player Y. Yep. I have 20 and state screen max height -20, and I don't have this font. Okay, let me copy paste again. Ctrl F. I want this thing. Oh, I even have this public static class engine stuff. Engine. Interesting. Like a car, automobile. Let's put it here. Then I should probably initialize this value. So like this. Should be easier for me. Nope. Beautiful keyboard. And do I have another constructor for it? Okay, so by default we have this font. And we have this font size. It's in points, not in pixels. That's interesting. Ugh. Can I change Boolean integer? What? To avoid filtering artifacts. Oh my god. Glyph layout. Okay. Well, that's why I said that even if we try to accomplish something compact, it doesn't mean that this feature is super obvious. And that's the reason why sometimes you really want to use someone else's code for handling stuff like this. Right? Oh, okay. It's because it's already... So I have this library, right? Probably free type. Okay, what else do we got here? Nothing? That is boring. Maybe something else? Okay, it's also boring. Utils. Where is utils? OSX, JCraft. Interesting. Okay, that's for sound. Nice. Yeah, I know about that. For those who don't know, I'm using libgdx library. You can type it in Google and get something like this. Yep, it's official site. It's a framework. It can be scripted using Java. You can do games with it if you really want it. You can port them to Android, for example, because it's written in Java. There is official documentation, but nevertheless, I want to check. So, when I said that I'm using it, I'm using also a special system for building my project, and this build system is called Gradle. And in a file called build.gradle, you can see where I'm using Box2D Lite version, IE version, RoboVM version. RoboVM? That's weird. Okay, JDX version. And later you can see dependencies. So this is a backend platform, something for controllers, and this one for rendering text, because FreeType is a library that is used for I would say let's keep it for later discussion. Now I'm just trying to understand if I have all these dependencies, and they are also mentioned here. Same dependencies should be shown in external libraries, but I'm clicking this triangle stuff. What I see here, JDX, nice. Can I see utils here? Fine. Okay, I can see only one font. That's not cool, but it gives the point. So I have these. Are they even English? No. I would say it's like additional letters. Many weird symbols. I would call it like that. Okay. Oh yes. This looks definitely like some font. Okay, so it's like simplified version. Okay, nice. Fine. Let's get back to the stuff that I wanted to discuss. So, if my understanding is correct, then when I'll be moving, no, twice, it's too much. The only thing that I've added to a simple starter project, like I just made it in 2 minutes before starting the stream, I took the project called Code Starter, this one. I renamed a couple of packages, I renamed the name of a project at this line, and just opened the resulting project in my IDE. That's it, nothing special. Well, okay, I renamed one additional class. I renamed starter to text shower. That's all I've done. And now I've added this line, and I know that this font is initialized with that funny little bitmap font, because we can control left click here, that's great, control left click here, and we can see this fnt file was used. Both these files. One FNT and the second one is PNG. PNG stands for image. Okay, nice. So get back to where we started. We added this XY. Let's start and see what we got. Maybe nothing. So we can see these. Can you see this stuff at the top? Due to the fact that we have now rounding for our coordinates, we see them as floats. So we see a number of digits after that. The problem is this font is white and our background is also white. We probably should change it to something more contrast. So let's do it like, maybe it shouldn't be too green, but who cares? Just for contrast's sake. Whoa, no, that's too much. Okay, red, I don't want red. It would be gray. For example, like this. And run again. I'm really bad at colors. Yep, so this one, my green square looks not that crisp, but we can see this text. And it also is drawn at the top of my player entity that I'm moving around. So what I wanted to say, is it difficult? Is it really difficult to draw something? Well, not particularly, I would say. Why it's like that? So can you paste any text you want? Well, probably you can, but there is a catch. So I have no particular scenario in mind, and I don't want to be too boring, but this stuff is a bit complicated. Like how, you can ask? So have you ever seen functionality like zooming over your text? For example, I'm pressing Ctrl plus, and I can see the letters, and they're still, I would call them smooth. If I try to do the same thing for an image, for example, let's open something in IDE. For example, I have an assets, I have the square, and for example I would try to, can I zoom it? Okay, well, I can see zoom in, and then I do zoom in again, and you can see these staircase, I would say visualization. Yep, sounds about right. So you may think well, it's just because you are making the image bigger, right? It's okay, so what's the difference with this? I'm also making these letters bigger, but they're not getting the same staircase effect. How would you describe the reason? And if you never thought about that, you may, as me, you may when you're thinking about typing something in a browser or on your phone, you consider, oh, we are always typing something, right? We had really old phones, and they also would allow us to send SMS messages or check browsers and everything, and there was always something with text. So text should be something easy, right? Well, that's not the case. So it's like if you have an electrical plug in your home and you can start your, I don't know, any kitchen utility. So if you have electrical, in Britain it would be called potter. What else? For example, electrical oven, right? So you just press some buttons and it just became hot after some time. Why? Well, because there is electricity. So okay, so is electricity something simple? Well, yes, you just pay some money and you get electricity. Is it really that easy? Well, you also have to get a contract and you have to install something with wires, and then it should be easy. Well, okay, if you just have a piece of wire, then you probably don't have electricity, right? Well, yes, technically, because there should be some electrical plant that generates this electricity. Oh, really? So, while using something may be really obvious and easy because everyone is doing it, actually creating infrastructure for it, for making it that easy and useful, can require some, I would say, extremely interesting ideas and extremely, I would say, efficient way to work with this text before we can use it and not see all this staircase stuff. Okay, so what do I mean by that? As I said, there is something that has difficulties with scaling up, and there is something that doesn't have those issues with scaling up. So how can this be achieved? For example, this small little program should also have these zoom in, and for some interesting reason you also can't see any staircase effect. Do you know why? So there are two types of images or two types of graphics that you can easily stumble upon while using internet. So one of them is called Raster Graphics, and the second one is called Vector Graphics. Without bothering you too much, Raster Graphics is like you have a grid of pixels and you just put different colored, I would say, squares, one near the other, and then you get full grid, and that's your image. If you try to make it bigger, you can easily do it like twice, and each square becomes 2 times bigger. Or you can try to make it smaller, and there are some difficulties, but that's not the point. So how else can we describe the graphics if not by these little squares on a grid? Because we should visualize it on our screen, right? And our screen is sort of a grid of pixels. Well, yes. And here we again should think about sort of mathematical approach. If you know that you have a line, for example, you can draw it in a way. Can I draw it? Just a second. You can draw it like this. There should be something even better, like this. You can see it's a straight line. It's like 3 circles. For some reason I can do something with them. So when you look at it as an image, you can guess that there is a number of pixels that are black and a number of pixels that are white, right? But there is another way how you can describe it. You can describe it as a formula. As if you remember from school, or maybe you checked somewhere, like y equals x something. And you can see this. Or you can add something like 2x. And you can see the angle has changed. Or you can say like 29. Right? So now you can see that when we move on 2, x equals 2, it's about 60 on the axis of y, on vertical. So if we find a way to use something like x multiplied by x, then we can get different shapes, and even we can do something like this. Then we can minus something x. and we can have different shapes, all we want to know. And also we can say that we want this formula, but not all the way from minus infinity to plus infinity. No. For example, we want this shape, this relation between y and x, only on a certain region from x, for example 0 to x, like half or a bit less. In that way we can say that we need this smooth line, but we don't say that it will be a number of pixels on a grid. But later, when you decide that you want to show this line, you have to actually render it, because formula is a formula, and when you see this formula turned into pixels, then some piece of code actually took this formula and decided, okay, I have this number of pixels that I can use for visualization, right? So I should try to think how I'm gonna put it. Okay, where, like, how much space will be there for my line? And the trick is, as you're working with like mathematical points, I can zoom in, zoom out, and the thickness of this line is not changing. It's like always the same. That's the trick, because we're using vector graphics. We're using a formula, we're using a math to describe something, and then later we have to rasterize it and make a final bitmap font, if you want to call it like that, bitmap image that we can show on a screen. I'm not sure that I described it really nice, but I just wanted to point out that there are two ways of describing graphics. And why would I do this? Well, there is a thing in typography, in like business of doing books, for example, or doing magazines, where people specifically choose different fonts. You may think of fonts as something as boring, stupid, and who would actually do them? But in fact, there is whole, let's say, area of design and research about the way how to shape different letters so that they can be best used for reading, or best be used for huge logos of companies, or for titles. Because one font that can be easily used for reading may be not that useful for like catchy looking title at the top of your magazine, for example. So there is this like activity called typography, where people design different fonts, some of them for joke, like Comic Sans, some of them for different like languages. Oh yeah, I haven't mentioned, if you have something like a font, it doesn't mean that it contains every possible letter, because as you probably know, each letter is sort of a formula with different numbers and stuff. And if you want to have formula, for example, for thicker version of a font, like bold one or italic, you have to add additional formulas. So you have a huge library of formulas that you can later turn into actual font. And it would, I would say, it would take too much space for every possible letter, because there are languages like, not the languages, but alphabets like Cyrillic. There are different Asian languages. There are, I don't know, Finnish languages or something from Norway. There are Arabic languages that also should be written from right to left, and many emojis and other thing. Yep, so font consists of glyphs. Each element that we can use. So I can see something with Cyrillic. I can see some weird stuff. This one looks for Czech languages. I'm sure that I have enough for German languages. The umlauts like this, but for big letters. Yep. So from this number of glyphs I can see that it's not enough if you are native to certain European countries, for example. I'm not sure that it's enough for French. So that's it. If you want to have letters that you want to draw, someone should design the font for it, and each letter should correspond to specific code that would codify the letter for this particular language. If you have no font, then sorry, we can just check it. If you have no font, and for example, you can use, oh, not like this, so we can choose this funny letter. What if we try to paste it in our program? Yep. So somehow keep it fun. Yep. So for example, I want to add here this funny letter. Looks like a circle. Okay. How can we use it? And you can see, well, I mean, you can't see, and that's the issue. So in our case, we have a font, and each letter has its own code, and when we attempt to get a code and corresponding image in our font, we get nothing. And if we get nothing for our letter, we just skip it. In some cases, you would see broken, you can see some broken symbol that would signify that you lost something, but it wouldn't be really helpful because there will be some four-letter code, for example. That's it. Fonts are hard just from design perspective, and the main way how you approach working with fonts is usually you have, so there are two ways, right? So you can have these gazillions of glyphs for different languages that you download in your project, and if you have a project of 1 megabyte, you can easily have fonts for about half a gigabyte for it. Sounds a bit too much, right? But there is another problem. If you have a slow computer and you decide to have many letters in your program, then if you would try always to recreate the bitmap image of your letters in runtime while your program is running, it would constantly turn formulas into pixels, and that will be really wasteful. So the approach used by libgdx program is pretty clever. It's like caching, it's like pre-rendering, I would call it. The only issue is that it has a fixed font size of 15 points, but we have already turned all these letters, all these numbers into actual images. And then later there is this special file that says that, oh, if I have a character, a letter, with this special identifier, then you should try to find this square. I guess all this stuff is just a square. Really tricky. So XY is like 253 and Y 58. 253. So there was 58. You have no idea. So okay, 153 and 58. So it should be something like, why here? Oh no, it should be if this is a square, so this, I would suggest there should be A, but it's not. A is in different place. I have no idea how this magic is working, because probably I should know how it's packed here. Advance, offset, and stuff on page. Yep, so the idea is that this is a mapping for finding a small rectangle with actual letter that can be later used for drawing something. In that way you load this thing once, and when you need to convert identifier for a character, you just find it in a map and draw part of this image. In that way it would be much easier to draw, and it will be much faster because you wouldn't spend time working with these vector graphics and so on. The difficulty would happen, would be found in like many places, because currently if I would want, for example, to limit the size, how would I do this? How would I show it? For example, if I have these, can I have it? Can I have it? Do I want it? Okay. Text area. Okay. So like this. If I'm typing something, you can see that I'm moving to the next line. The trick is that this component called text area in web programming, it actually handles this logic of breaking your long line into chunks that it can draw on different like places on your screen. And if you would want to do something like this, you would have to implement it manually. You would say like, oh, how difficult it should be. Well, you have to know exact width of your characters, and you also should know the width of your white space character. Yep, because it's also a character, it should have dimension. And this dimension would change for different font sizes. And that's just the top of an iceberg of how difficult it can be to work with text. With moving it around, for example, if you have like this and you're moving to the top, you have to keep somewhere your like cached version of a text, and it can be really huge pain in every place you can imagine when you're working with this. So why I'm saying all this? When you see a code that relies on a library called FreeType, you can imagine that it's something with typing. Yep, and that's it. That's a program, that piece of code that can be used on many platforms, and the main idea for it is to help to work with fonts, with rendering text, without like crashing your computer, without writing everything from the beginning. It's not working for stuff like this multi-line thing, but it simplifies the stuff with rendering separate elements. And that's already a great start. I'm not sure that it was really fun to discuss, but I just wanted to point out that while we are talking about different small programming projects, you may really think that, well, if it sounds simple, like move a square, then it definitely is easy, like under the hood. Well, you can imagine that it's not like this. Why we're using different libraries? Because they hide some of complexity, and this complexity also gives you huge, I would say, it's not a creative freedom, but it's a huge and wide technical freedom. If you know what you're doing, you can do many cool things with it. And usually people don't waste their time on this, because if you decide that you want to have these great moving images on your screen because you're making some game, then you probably need images, you want to move them, you have to make something react to keyboard, like keyboard buttons, or to controller input, and that's it. You also want some sound, then you probably want to edit some animation, and that's it. The problem comes, the problem comes is that, comes from the fact that nothing is free. So in one moment you decide that you want to draw one square, on the other moment you decide that you want to draw, for example, 1000 of them, and you may think, oh, it should be free, right? Because drawing one square is free. Well, you guess, it's not free. Every time you calculate something, you pay the price with either memory of your computer or CPU cycles. I would call them like that. So I'm getting really technical here. But what I wanted to say, any solution that you use, it's not working in some magical dimension. It's working on your computer. The more you use and try to duct tape different components, the bigger the chance that you may stumble upon inefficiency in reusing them. And that's the point where you can think of, oh, okay, if it's going so difficult that maybe I should go a bit lower in my technical stack of technologies to understand why it's happening like this. And usually it's like where people just say that screw it, I want to do something else. I want to do drawing, I want to do sound design, I want to write scenarios or anything like this. Well, not because it's bad or it's easier. No. Every craft, doing it in a masterful way, requires years of experience and inspiration and everything. Just in technical world, you have to deal with libraries, with code of other people, with technological decisions and some math to make it work. And some people find it amusing, like a challenge, because on one hand you have to do math with these moving X and Y, but on the other hand you can actually turn into reality any of your weird ideas or design choices for upcoming game or art project. So it's like, for example, if you like mountain biking or something, it's definitely much harder than riding a bike at your home or near your home where it's easy. Is it for everyone? I'm not sure. Can it be really fun and engaging? I would say yes, it really can be. Is it easy to start and learn this stuff? I would say no, it's not easy, or everyone would do this and no one would care. But when people do it masterfully, it looks great, and yeah, like awesome in that sense. So programming also requires some time, some learning, and I would say the most, it requires some patience to play around with different technologies, with approaches. And sometimes when you think of something like, oh, I'm just drawing something and it's just magic, right? Well, it's not magic. There are some technical limitations that we have due to limited computer efficiency and resources, and we have to work around it to get the great illusion of actual moving something on a screen. Because while it's really entertaining to move something on a screen and feel like this is something that appeared of our imagination, it's still an electronic device that interacts, that reacts to our button pressing and turns this into glowing lights on your screen. And this is it's really complex system, and you can probably manage it and control it for your own desire and fun if you would spend enough time with it. Something like this. So why it's not moving to the top? Yep. Yeah, so what I want to do now, I have changed the starting small, keep it fun with text. I also have this readme. I have already changed it, right? Basic project with text shown on screen. Sorry. No shower here. Yep. Exactly, no shower. It handles graphic keyboard drawing text. So you can add whatever you wish. Yep, sounds about right. So next time when I would want to draw something, I already know that I should use probably English letters and numbers, and everything should be fine. So now just let me do the boring stuff. it will be, let me refresh. Okay, I want to do a new project, new repository, text shower, lib.txt example with text on a screen. Okay, I create my repository again. I have these commands. I have to do some manipulations, like I have to initialize my system for keeping all the changes. What I've got here. Yep, files, Gradle, license, ignore that. Sounds about right. Initial code. Then I want to set the address. Then I want to change which branch is the main one, and again I want to save my changes, and that's it. You can see that last command was like git push u origin main, and if everything went okay, yep, about half a minute ago, this project is now here in a repository. It should be easy to work with if you decide to download it and do some stuff with it. Okay, like I have no more like words about types and fonts and glyphs and everything. If you really want to dive deeper, you can probably Google it yourself. Just be aware that it's like pretty deep rabbit hole. There are different design things and typography stuff that it can be really cool, and you can learn like more nuance, like why these like letters look not the same as letters at the main page because of different fonts, and like how difficult it is, or like Bezier curves and so on. Like pretty neat stuff, but it can be really daunting to learn and begin learning this stuff, even if it's really nice. It really shows how some boring mathematics can be really useful and applied later for everyone to use without even knowing that it's there. Okay, thank you for your time. I hope you've learned something cool from all this. I definitely got some progress, so next time probably I want to show something with jumping and get to the jumping thing. Wish everyone good health, good day, good week, and